Yeah. All right.
Okay,
We're on Tessim Aleph. We're going to start from the top of the Amud. We're on Tessim Aleph, and we'll start from the top. Do you have the pictures with you?
These pictures?
Yeah.
Okay.
Take them out. They're stapled, not stapled? Yours aren't? They're stapled. Okay.
No, these things also.
No, that's from Shabbos.
Oh no, that's something else. That's, I don't know what that is.
Okay. Flip the page. Test above. One more. I gave you. You have to double the first page.
Oh, that's right.
No. Page before. Thank you.
How was it?
It's very nice. Tesvav and Alf. Patty Tesvav. This here, right here, this picture.
Oh.
Okay? In this picture, in Tesvav, you see a picture of a lechi, which on the inside of the alley looks equivalent, right? It looks like the lechi is level, is flush with the rest of the alley. On the outside, however, the lechi is indented. So somebody who looks from the outside sees the indentation of the lechi. Somebody who looks from the inside doesn't see the lechi indentation. You see that?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay? So let's learn about that. Taking it from the top.
Okay.
Hoya mashuch. It extends out. Abba baravuna maroino sokilu konus. It's good enough. It's the same thing. Tezvav, even though it's only obvious to somebody on the outside, is as good as if it was indented towards the inside, which is valid. What?
That's where the lechi was set up when we were looking at it.
No, but this is not talking about a lechi for a tzuras of Pesach.
Oh.
Those are all bets. That's a different ball game altogether.
Okay.
This is a lechi at the opening of a mavui. Okay?
Oh, okay.
This is the last night?
What? No, Wednesday's last night. Oh. One second. By the way, Rabbi Yisai, in London, there's a guy who read my Jewish Observer article. It was reprinted in the Jewish Tribune, which is the English equivalent. He read it a few weeks ago. His Chavrusa showed it to him. His Chavrusa told him last week, guess who's coming to town? The author of the article. The day before I got there for Shabbos, they called him up from the shul and said, guess who you're hosting over Shabbos for a meal? Anyway, to make a long story short, he had told his Chavrusa a year ago, he said, if somebody taught Daf Yomi Yerushalmi, I would go. So he ordered all the tapes.
Really?
Yes.
Every single one? Wow.
Every single one, yes.
Holy,
I don't think I'm going to send them all at once, but he ordered every single
I thought you were
tape.
going to say he moved to Chicago.
No.
That would have been real.
But Yerushalmi tapes, they're all 200 so already. Yeah. Okay. So the Yerushalmi movement is going worldwide. That's right.
Internationally renowned Yerushalmi.
That's right. So, Haya Mashuch. I think this is open. Haya Mashuch. So, Arba Chuna Amar Omer Roino Sokilu Hukanus. You see it as if it's actually indented towards the inside, as we mentioned over there. Rabbi Chizdoi asked a question. If you have a large, here's a picture of the Korban Eidah. If you have a large chutzner which is indented into a small chutzner, you see that case? Right, that's the large chutzner, the base of the T, and the small chutzner. Right, we had that several times in the Bible. Right. Chutzner g'dol shniv ktana. Hag'dol muteris. The large chutzner is permitted. The large chutzner is permitted. V'ktana asura, and the smaller chutzner is prohibited. So says the Gemara. If you say that a scenario like this is okay, so the same thing should be true about where you have a large chotzer and a small chotzer, that I should say that the walls of the large chotzer should be the l'chayim of the small chotzer, right? Like this, right? In this case, here's the small chotzer, and here's the large chotzer. So let the flanking walls here, let them be l'chayim for the small one, right? Okay, so why are these flanking ones not l'chayim? So says the Gemara. Evening.
Yasu kosik lo l'chayim etzel kosik tana, v'uchak tana, let the small one be permitted. Amalei Abba Barav Chuna, so Rav Baruch Chuna said, "Tipata b'mshuchim yesim yeser." This is very interesting. We actually did this 3 weeks ago, but it's the last thing we did, so I figured it's important to go over it. He said, we're talking about this case over here where you have a chotzer gdol next to a chotzer ktana. The reason why these are not l'chayim, these side walls, is because they're more than 10 amos long. This is more than 10 amos. This segment here is more than 10 amos. The bottom of that T over there, and this segment over here is more than 10 amos, and therefore it's not a valid lechi. Now this is a very interesting question. Why not? This is something which all the achronim here discuss. We never had such a principle before that a lechi can't be more than 10 amos, right? So there's several different reasons which are proposed here. One reason which is proposed was given by the Reb Meir Simcha Lieberman, brings him down by the Or Sameach. He says, up to 10 amos is a lechi, not more, because the lechi must by definition be smaller than the opening. In other words, a lechi is a reminder which you place upon an opening. It can't be larger than the opening itself. The maximum opening is 10 amos. More than 10 amos a lechi doesn't work, right? Because more than 10 amos you need to Pesach. For more than 10 amos, lechi does not suffice. The lechi only suffices up to 10 amos. So therefore, the lechi can't be larger than the opening which it's meant to serve. And therefore, something which is 10 amos or more cannot be a valid lechi. That's how Meir Simcha explains, which is a very nice job. Okay? So Rabbi Shane, Kumi Rabbi Acha. Rabbi Shane learned from Rabbi Acha, B'gdoila achadasrei v'ktano eser. You know what? It's not true. Because I found that this case is talking about, I found a brisa which says that the small chotzer is 10 amos broad, as you just mentioned. The opening is 10 amos, and the larger chotzer is not much larger, it's 11 amos broad. So if this is 10, because it's not drawn to scale, obviously. But if this 10 and this one is 11. So the whole difference on each side is 3 tvachim. No, so that should be okay, right? But the question is then, why do I say the chotzer ktana is also? In other words, if I say that this case over here is good, that a lechi which is identifiable from the outside is sufficient, so then again we have difficulty here. Why does this wall not serve as the lechi for that courtyard? It should serve as the lechi for that courtyard, right? From the small one to the large, it should be allowed. Yeah, the large one obviously it serves as l'chayai because you have it's facing them, right? But small one. So what? But as we said, this case is good, where it's visible only from the outside. So why by this case where it's visible only from the outside is not good? They should both be similar. So it says the Gemara. Now, each bes mas nisav lo ishtachka. The easy way out, although we will give a different answer in a moment, the easy way out is to say we never found this brisa. In other words, we looked for this brisa and we couldn't find it. Okay? Amalei Avacha. By the way, I have to tell you, as an aside, when I was in Israel, I went to Katzrin. Katzrin is a town in the Golan. Katzrin is a town which they've identified as being Kesarin. In other words, the Yerushalmi, much Yerushalmi was written in a city called Kesarin, which was thought to be Caesarea. But they now know that that's a mistake. It was not Caesarea. And the truth is, it always ranked false. Caesarea was always a very Roman city. We don't know of any rabbis who actually lived there. So it turns out that Kesarin, there actually was Katzrin, Kesarin in the Golan, right? And they actually found there in Katzrin, they found the kever of Rabbi Avun. It's a very famous Amor in the Yerushalmi, yes. And they actually found a lintel from the base medrash. Base medrash there is pretty well preserved. They found the lintel from the base medrash, low enough from the one they found, but they found the lintel which said, Zeh, I saw it. It says in Hebrew block letters, Zeh base midrasho sherabi Eliezer hakfar. Hey kuf peresh, it was a Tano, but it actually, his base medrash was located in Katzrin. So this really, when we have the Rabbanan, the Kesarin, and in fact the three big Masechtos, Baba Khan, Baba Bas, and Yerushalmi, which were written by Rabbanan, the Kesarin, they were written up there in the Golan, not down on the coast in Caesarea.
It's totally overturned this Gedalia 8 months ago.
Yeah.
He says a lot of the things when he talks about Caesarea.
Yeah.
As being the reference in the
Right. It's totally incorrect. I mean, we don't know with certainty, but reasonably certain that this is incorrect, that it's actually there. So when I sat there in the base medrash and meditated on the learning of the Yerushalmi, and I was mispalel that we should be zoicha, it's very moving to actually sit to learn Yerushalmi and then sit in the base medrash where much of the Yerushalmi was actually written and think about it. It's Katzrin. It's a beautiful modern town in the Golan, a thriving city, and outside the city they have the antiquities. Okay. So, says more further. Rav Shimon ben Lakish. No, it's not. Yeah, it's explicitly. Amrei Rabbi Acha. Amrei Acha came Rav Shimon ben Lakish. Rabbi Acha said, so too said Reish Lakish. Kol Mishnah shlo nichnas lechabura. Which means here, in the Mishnah here means a Bryce, any Bryce which didn't come into the Chabur. And the Chabur obviously was Chabur Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yesher, Rabbi Shimon Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan, right? Because they were all the Chabur, the group of Talmidim Rabbi Yochanan. Any Bryce which did not enter that Chabur, ain't so it's not reliable. Is that not the point you're about to make? Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Had to be especially in Eretz Yisrael because he was an Israeli. Okay, so says Mara, Rabbi Yesa, Asya Commando Amar, Chotzeni Teres B'Shnei Pasi. Now, the truth is, he says, even if it is a Val Bryce, I have an answer for it. There's a Mandomer who holds, although we don't pass him like that Mandomer, but it's a Mandomer holds that a Chotzer is only Niteres B'Shnei Pasi. You need two Pasi in order to allow courtyards, two boards. U'B'Vad Pashal Arba T'fachim Mikan, Pashal Arba T'fachim Mikan. That each board has to be 4 T'fachim wide. So here, in the Chotzer which we drew, each board is only 3 T'fachim wide. So that's not good. In order to be valid, it has to be 4 T'fachim wide. Okay? So therefore, that price is going according to the opinion, granted, not an opinion we paskin like, but nonetheless a legitimate opinion, that the shiur of the board is 4 tefach a piece. Okay? So it says more further, Rabbi Yesi Rabbi Bun, Rabbi Yesi Bun said, Vafilu Teimo Kain, he means to say the same thing, he's repeating it again. He says, even to say the Bryce is a valid Bryce, I can work it out. Asi command Amar, that a chotzer is permitted with 2 pasim, who will vad pashal arbet tefachim mikan, kind of passer arbet tefachim mikan, as long as each pass is $1. So that's how the Bryce is going. If the Bryce indeed specified that it's 10 and 11, and that's 3 tefachim on either side of the opening. Okay? Rav Ukva v'shem Rabbanan de Tamon. Rav Ukva, the name of the rabbis in Bavel, said, Ligdoyle heini doinus ve'eini doinus laktano. Rabbanan Tamon are the rabbis in Bavel, but I don't actually recall seeing this in the Bavli. But he's saying that these l'chayim do serve as l'chayim for the large courtyard and not l'chayim for the small courtyard, because they are not seen from inside the small courtyard. So in this case, he would say, of course, that this case also as well where the lechi is flush on the inside and only visible from the outside, that's not a valid case either. Okay? Says the Gemara further. This is this picture here, Tez Zayin, where you have the walls are not even. Okay, one wall of the mavui juts out further than the parallel wall on the other side. Okay? So what's the law in this case? This actually was discussed in the Bavli as well. One side protrudes and one side is shorter. Kahana said, you put the koira on an angle, like this. Right? This is the Korah actually, across the mouth of the Movi. Nosin as Korah Luchsan, you put the Korah in an angle, and Mishtamesh Bluchsan, and you can use the Movi actually on that angle. In other words, up to the where the Korah is. Rabbi Achel, this opinion was not brought down in the Bavli, if I recall correctly. The opinion we just learned, no, it was. That was brought down. Rabbi Achel B'Shem Rakana said, "Noisa Kor Luchsan u'mishtamish Luchsan." You can do that. You put it on an angle, and you can use it on an angle. However, Uvach lo te Korah Meshucha Yeser Me'eser. The length of the Korah may not be more than 10 amos. Why is that? Because again, the maximum heter which you have is up to 10 amos. Okay. Now, here's a change of gear, so the Shinun Schos makes on the bottom. Rabbi Yossi, instead of me to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi, Kaima Rav Avdime Nechisa. Rav Avdime, who went down to Bavel, came, and he said, Uvachlo Te'akor Yom Meshuchis Mes, the same idea, the Korah cannot extend more than 10 amos. However, Rabbi Yaakov Shevach said, "Uvachlo yakoiso mashuch yeser me'arba." This can't be more than 4 amos. The gap between this wall and the end of this wall and the end of this wall cannot be more than 4 amos. Is that clear? This distance over here cannot be more than 4 amos, because then that makes this point as if it's a separate mavli away, because the shiur of a mavli is 4 amos. So if this is 4 amos distant, right, the long side ends 4 amos beyond the short side, so it's as if it's a separate mavli, and one korah cannot work for both. Okay? Ashkechas Amar. Ashkechas Amar. You come out saying Madatzricha Lahain Pshita Lahain. So it comes out, now nobody understands exactly what this line means, but it comes out that which is pasha to one is a suffix to the other. Now the most simple way to explain that is that even though he answered if this distance was more than 4, he wasn't sure about it. He said, I'm not sure. It's partial to me that up to 4 you can put the beam on an angle, but more than 4 I don't know. The other man Dharma was sure that you could, as long as what? As long as the length of the beam itself was not longer than 10 amos. So he was sure about that. More than 4 amos is still okay, as long as the length of the beam itself is not more than 4 amos. Amar Rabula said, it's completely different shot. I'm going to learn this like Reb Chaim Kanievsky. The other one for the Corbinator and Pnei Moshe learns a story about Amos, but I'm going to learn like him, which says it's a story about Tvachim. What does he say? Amar Rabula Mishlosha Vararba Hu Masnisin. Now Masnisin doesn't mean the Mishnah really, it means what we just learned. He says that the distance between here and here, between the end of this wall and the end of the adjacent, parallel wall, can only be three tefachim. Yes. 3 to 4. Between 3 and 4 tefachim. Not more than that. Why is that? We'll see in a minute. Pachos mishlosha. Afilu yesem yeser. If it's less than 3 tefachim between the end of this wall and the end of the parallel wall, then I feel even if the core itself is more than 10 tvachim, I don't mind. Arba, however, if it's 4 tvachim, right, then I feel pachas mi'eser, even if this core is less than 10 amos long, it's still forbidden. Why is that? Because the moment this is more than 4 tvachim, the long wall over the short wall, it's not a separate movli, but it's like a separate opening. And therefore it's like a separate opening, it needs its own korah. Okay? Before we learned that if the shiur was a quarter one being, this is 4 amos, because that makes a separate movli. Now we're saying even if it's 4 tefachim, because if it's 4 tefachim, it is a separate opening. Because the shiur of a movli is 4 amos, so the shiur of an opening is 4 tefachim. And once it's 4 tefachim, it is no good.
You said the 3 tefachim from this top of this point to here.
Right.
Why would one person? What's the problem with the korah that's more than 10 amos long when the gap is 3 tefachim? Who cares about the overlap?
No, the gap here, the gap is, it's the side of this triangle. In other words, to make a right triangle. So the side of this triangle cannot be more than 4 tefachim. That's what he's saying. Because then it's another opening. Okay? So he's saying it's immaterial how long the korah actually is. The korah, before we were saying what mattered was the korah. Because korah can be more than 10 amos. We're saying that now, he's saying that's immaterial. I don't care. Because the bottom line is it's less than 10 amos across the entire movli. However, if this is a separate opening, because it's more than 4 tefachim away from the base of the imaginary triangle, so then that's no good. Alright? Next Mishnah. You can use anything to make a lechi. Even something which is alive, such as a live donkey. Remember that picture in the Perush Chai? Yeah, okay. I feel right? Meir says it's forbidden. Right? Meir, the Tanakama says, since you can make a wall out of a living creature, you can also use it to be a gravestone. We use it to be a gravestone. It's Tomei, because gravestones are Tomei. Meir says it can't be a gravestone, and therefore it's dark. Kaisel of Gita Noshim, you can write a get on it. Rabbi Yosef Glili posts, Rabbi Yosef says you can't. Yosef Glili says you can't write a get on it. Okay? Tani, we learned Kol Davar Sheish Bo Ruach Chaim, anything which has a life force, Osin Oso Dofen, when it's allowed to make it a wall, Vein Osim Oso Lechi, but not a Lechi. The fascinating Gemara, right? Divrei Meir. You're allowed to make it a wall for what? A wall for Sukkah. For example, Sukkah needs a wall, you're allowed to make it a wall. Now to make it a Lechi. Strange thing. Gemara is going to discuss it. Divrei Meir. Chachomrim Ein Osim Oso Dofen, the exact opposite. You can't make it a wall, but you can make it into a lechi. You can't make it a wall, but you can make it a post on the fourth-sided rope and moving. Now, major mistakes in the Girsa here. Girsa's messed up for the whole next 10 or 15 lines. Rabbi Yaga, just reverse everything. The key. Rabbi Yaga said, should be trained tanoin inu. There are 2 separate tanoim. What does it mean, 2 separate tanoim? This is inherently inconsistent. If it's good to use an animal, it should be good both as a wolf sukkah and a lechi on a movli. If it's bad to use an animal, so it should be bad for both. You can't say it's good for one and bad for the other. Doesn't make any sense. So if it says train tanoim, it can't. It's 2 separate tanoim. Madam Arosin Osodofini, who says you can make it a wall. You can also make it a post. Mandamar Enosimosodophini, it says you can't make it a wall. Enosimosolechi, you can't make it a post either. Okay? It can't be that there's any Tana who holds that you make it one and not the other. It's either both or none. Not one or the other. Not one and not the other. Rabbi Yosef, he argued, he said, Chat Amora Ihu. Chatanu. It's one Tana. In other words, it's possible for one Tana told of a dichotomy. It is indeed possible that it may serve as a lechi, dofen, and not as a lechi. How so? The Gemara will explain. Why do you make it a wall? Shili Yishameit? Because if it's a full wall and it runs away, what will happen? You'll notice. You'll take notice. And that's why the next word is also a mistake. Shilishamet margish. He will notice. Why don't you make it a lechi? Because if it's a lechi, it's just a sliver. And therefore, if it runs away, you won't notice. And that's why the next word is a mistake. Shilishamet Eino margish. He's not going to notice. Come Rabbi Yeshua de Rumya. So Rabbi Yeshua de Rumya, I would have once thought that that's Rome, but who knows? Might be some little city in the Galil HaTachton, right? Come Rabbi Yeshua de Rumya, Im Talmudai de Rabbi, it should be the Talmudai de Rabbi Yosef. So Rabbi Yeshua de Rumya started talking to the Talmud of Rabbi Yosef. Now Rabbi Yosef, of course, was the one who said that it's possible to have one Tana who holds both, that he can make it a dofen and not a lechi. Amrulo. So they said to him, Amrin de Basrei. It should be really Amar Lahem. I didn't notice that, but it should be Amar Lahem. Sure, the Rumi said to the students, Amrin de Basrei. Look at what comes next. So look at the Sefer. Look at the end. The Pliga Rabchon, it argues on your Rabbi Yosef. How so? Because there's a price that says, you can't make it a wall of sukkah, but you can't make it a lechi. According to the Svar Rabbi Yosef, it should be the exact opposite. You can make it a dofen and not a lechi. A dofen you can make it a wall because if it runs away you'll notice. A lechi you can make it because if it's a lechi and it runs away you ain't going to notice. Yet the Brisa says the Chachamim hold the exact opposite, that you can make it a lechi and cannot make it a dofen. Right? You can make it a post, can't make it a wall. So it says that's what he asked. Rabbi Yeshua the Rumi asked it. My b'shoshili shomet eno margish. Even a case where it runs away, you're not going to feel, you're not going to sense it. At Omar Mutter, you say it's Mutter, i.e. to make it a lechi. Kan, in case of a wall, shili shomedu margish. Where if it runs away, you're going to notice it. Lo koshke, it is not obvious that it's good that he's going to, it should not certainly be Mutter. So we have to come to the conclusion, we are forced to come to the conclusion, that train Tanoin Inun, there are two Tanoim, and out Rabbi Yosef. Even in other words, Shin though it says Rabbi Achla here. Should be Rabbi Yosef. In other words, even Rabbi Yosef concede is forced to concede there must be two Tano, two separate statements. In other words, Rabbi Yosef is forced to concede that since it's illogical the way it's portrayed in the Brisa, because the Brisa portrays that one can use it for a lechi and not for a dofen, and that's illogical because it runs counter the argument that Rabbi Yosef's base medrash made, that if anything can be used for a dofen, for a wall, not for a lechi. So since the exact opposite position was found in the Brisa, it must be that we have to reinterpret the Brisa and make a way which makes sense consistently that the Madam was matir, is matir across the board. He permits it both for a wall and for a post. And he forbids for both the wall and post. Okay? So again, heich mod the temar tamon. Actually going further. Just like you said over there, trade tanoin inun out the rabbi. Acho. Just like we began saying that it's two separate tanoim according to Rabbi Acho. Again, changing the so Kain at Amar Ofacha. So too you have to say also train Tanoin Inun out the Rabbi Yoisa. Also, according to Rabbi Yoisa, you must concede the point and say it's two separate Tanoim. Period. Right? No, because Rabbi Acha is the one already who stated to begin with.
You said one time.
No, he said two. I changed it.
I know you changed it.
He's the one who said two. According to the version of Hagamar, he said one. Okay, I'm not sure. I just followed Reb Chaim Kanievsky throughout the Gemara. It's possible you could work it out without reversing everything, but he said you have to reverse all of them, so I just trusted him on that. Okay, Rabbi Shimon Kas, Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Yacha, and Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Shlosh Mudavar Echa. Now this is a fascinating thing. In the Bavli it says, what's the logic of Rabbi Meir? So it's both here in Masech the Sukkah. Why can't you use an animal as a lechi? Because kol mechitza omeretz beruach in a mechitza. Anything which requires air to sustain is not a wall. And according to the mayor, of course, you wouldn't be able to use a balloon. Because as this guy who just crashed into the faucet, right? Just crashed into the ocean proved balloons balloons can lose air. So, but the Yerushalmi doesn't give the same story. Yerushalmi gives a different story. And the Yerushalmi is about to explain. Rabbi Shem Bar Karas, no, Rabbi Shem, Rabbi Achon, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Lozmer, Azariah, Shloshim, Modav, they all say the same thing. What's that? A wobbly wall is not a wall. It's not because it has air, but because it's wobbly. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Meir is the opinion we mentioned in Mishnah. L'chayim are no good if they are made out of an animal because they can sway back and forth. Now the next 5 lines are superfluous. The next 5 words are superfluous because it's just quoting the end of our Mishnah, even though it's not relevant here. The time should go. Rabbi Meir and Matar not relevant to our discussion. Rabbi Yossi de Olos. So everybody, Rabbi Yossi say this. He said this in Masechta Olos, where he talked about a house which can obviously contains tumah within it, right? The house contains tumah, and the tumah doesn't spread beyond the house. So Rabbi Yossi said over there, if you have a house on a boat, since it's wobbly and not stable, maybe the tumah doesn't collect the tumah, or the tumah penetrates beyond the house. Okay? Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah make this point. The Tani we learned Maisa Bey Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah is a Maisa house Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah and Rabbi Akiva. Shuboim Bisfina, a very famous Maisa, is brought down in the Bavli too. They were coming on a boat. Vos Rabbi Akiva Sukkah Barosh Sfina. Rabbi Akiva made a boat at the head of the boat. Made a sukkah at the head of the boat. And a wind came and turned over sukkah. Amar lo Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah. Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah said, Akiva, Akiva, where'd your sukkah go? So why did Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah make the sukkah to begin with? Because he held any wall which is not a stable wall is not a valid wall.
Is that the problem with the canvas?
Yeah, it's a problem with canvas. That's right. Those old canvas is good because it's secured on the top and on the bottom. But those who passel canvas because it's wobbly. Sure. Okay, Mata Rabbi Seglili. What's like Rabbi Seglili holds it can't be a get. You can't write a get on an animal. Safer. Because it says a get has to be a sefer, a book. Ma sefer miyuchad shein bo ruach chaim. A sefer is unique in that it has no life force. Av kol davar shein bo ruach chaim. So in order to write a get, it has to be something which has no life force to it. Similarly, ma sefer davar she'eno ochel, just like a sefer is something which is not a food. Av kol davar kol she'eno ochel. If you want to write a get, it has to specifically be on something which is not food, right? So if it's food stuff, you can't write a get on according to this as well. Matam the Rabbanan. So why do Rabbanan argue? Because they learn much less from the word sefer. They learn ma sefer miyuchad shutos, just like a sefer is severed already from the ground. Av kol davar shutos, so to whatever you write a get on, it has to be severed from the ground. However, if it's severed from the ground, even an animal, it's not connected to the ground, you can write a get on an animal. I'll tie to Rabbi Yosef Glili. According to Rabbi Yosef Glili, who holds that you can't write a get on food. Yodos ochli kochlin, what about the stems of the food? Or do you decide to write a get on a stem of a grape? Pnei Moshe has two different possibilities. One is where the stem is still connected to the grape, and that's where the Gemara Shaila is. His second interpretation, which Lieberman says is the primary interpretation, is even once the stem is off the grape. Right? Since it was once part of the grape, doesn't make it possible to write again on it. Because he said safer as opposed to something which is food stuff. So maybe this array always retains its name being a food stuff because it was once upon a time attached to the food. Okay? That's Gemara's question. The Gemara tries to resolve from the following statement. Let's turn out from here. You wrote your get on the horn of a deer. And then you hacked it off. the chotzmo, and you signed it, the naslallah, and then he gave it to a kosher. Now, why is it kosher? Because first you cut it off, and then you signed it. What if first you signed it, and then you cut it off? Low. It's not good enough. So what do we see from here? That Yodos Ochlin are Ochlin. Why do we see Yodos Ochlin are Ochlin? Because we see that the horn, even though the horn is not edible, but since it's attached to the deer, it's no good, right? Seeing as I'm... What? Yeah. It's a sugya no gib, but very short. As in Gittin? I remember. Whether it's possible. I mean, I know it's somewhere in the Bavli, but I don't remember where. Whether the handle of the food, the stem of the food grape is like a grape. Okay? Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yacha, B'Shem Rabbi Moshe said no. And the truth is that it's only a problem if you write it on Zachrus, the male part of the horn. Now, what we mean by this is that an animal's horn actually looks like this.
By measure, by exile.
Here's an animal's head. The horn actually comes out of the head. It has a zachrus, which is the cartilage inside it, and then you have the outer shell. When you make a shofar,
You have to get rid of the cartilage inside.
you have to get rid of the cartilage inside. The cartilage inside is called the zachrus. So he's saying the only problem is if you wrote it on the zachrus, the cartilage inside, not on the inside part, not on the outer shell. Why is that? Because the outer shell is always considered to be separate. It's only the inner shell, because the inner shell is actually what attaches the inner part. It's actually what attaches the horn to the head, and that's why it's part of the animal, not the outer part of the shell. So actually, if you wrote on a shofar, even if the shofar is connected to the animal, it'll still be a valid get. Okay? So, you wrote on the male part of the horn. You write on the shell of the horn. It's as if it's separated, kosher, and it's okay. Rabbi Yochanan boy, Afli and Hechsher's Roim, Kate. Rabbi Yochanan asked the question, what about Hechsher's Roim? Now, what do we mean by this? Hey Chaviro, what case are you talking about? You wanted the rain to come down and wash your animal. Now your animal is not a valid wall, right? But it's considered, and it's not a valid get, right? It's considered not a valid get to an extent that it's like the ground. And therefore, if rain falls on it, it's like rain falling on the ground. And rain falling on the ground does not make something suitable to be makabel tumah. Only rain falling on something severed from the ground. You have rain which falls on something connected to the ground. It's not considered to be kiyutan. It's not considered to be that you place the water on your fruits or on your vegetables because you didn't intend to go on something severed from the ground. And the question is whether an animal is like that, right? So it says the Gemara. Tamon over there, or perhaps by get, Rabbi Yisrael said, Sefer, a book. Ma Sefer Mulcha Shem Baruch Chaim. A book is unique in that it doesn't have any life force. Av Kol Davar Shem Baruch Chaim. In order to write a get, it has to be anything which is not alive, as opposed to an animal. Av Hacha Kain. And so to here, an animal is considered alive, and anything which falls at an animal, therefore, is not suitable to be machshus on kabel tumah. Oh, shani, or maybe it's different here, because it's kol mashke sheyishase b'chol kli tama. Anything which goes in any vessel or in any vessel considered to say something suitable to Yikabel Tuma. So it says, well, no, wait. If that's true, maybe even if you intended the water to collect in a cistern, in a well, or in a cave, it should be machshir kabel tum as well, because you intended to have benefit from the water, to drink it, right? Granted, it fell onto something solid, so it connected to the ground, but you intend to drink it. Says Murno. Shani yochad d'chsiv kli. If it falls into a cistern or a well or such like, it's not falling into a keli. And it has to be kli. It says, Kol mashke asher yishase b'chol kli yitma. So it's got to fall into a kli. A kli precludes any structure in the ground. But might not preclude an animal. That's our question. Okay? A structure ground precludes. It's got to fall inside which is separate from the ground. The question is, what about an animal? An animal is, of course, in some sort of intermediate stage. Is that more similar to the ground or more similar to the keli? And the Gemara, of course, does not resolve the question. Okay? Yeah, but maybe in Gittin they do. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. But there, it's really there. It's more for the context of the nature of a get. And things like that. We're not discussing that here. No, you're right. We do bring that safer spheres toward there. I know, but Yerushalmi would not. We know Yerushalmi is very makatzer. Maybe Yerushalmi just left it over for there.
If I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken. Not only is the notion of safer, but it's also the idea that if it's, it has to be, can't be mechuvah the character. It comes up as part of the context of safer.
From Yirmiyahu? I don't remember if that's the case. Could be. It's possible.
But yeah, we won't know until we get to Gittin, because Yerushalmi is much less consistent in repeating things in any degree of verbosity. So it might leave most of the sugya for Gittin, as opposed to Yerushalmi, which would bring down Bavli, which would bring down most of the sugya verbatim. Okay. You have a caravan which camped in a open area. And you surrounded the caravan with the implements used for your animals. So make them made a wall. You can carry within that ad hoc wall as long as the wall is 10 tefachim high. However, you can't have more open area than you have built up area. In other words, it's got to be more fence than open space. Any opening which is up to 10 amos is permitted, because it's an opening. If it's okay, Rabbi Adam Shem Rabbi Chizdai. Rabbi Adam Shem Rabbi Chizdai said, "L'mi nitzacha." Who's is going like Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, like Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Omer, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda said, "Kol mechitza she'ena shel shesiva shel erev, ena mechitza." Normally, he says a wall has to be shesiva erev. What does shesiva erev mean? It has to be crisscross. What kind of fence is crisscross?
They cannot eat the fruit,
Uh-huh.
because why? These bears have
Chain link.
Chain link. As opposed to which fence did we mention the other day on Sunday?
Yeah, picket fence.
Not picket fence. That's, you're right. Slats. But where was there such a fence we mentioned?
Right across the street.
What?
By the cemetery?
By the cemetery, right. That's the problem with the Rose Lawn or Rose Hill Cemetery on Peterson, and the Bohemian National Cemetery on Bryn Mawr, or Foster. So they had those types of fences where you have a lot of individual poles. So those are not considered to be proper mechitzos. They only work for a shiur, only for a caravan. Because a true fence has to be either a solid block, of course, or chain link, crisscross, shesiv erev, right? For a form of a cross. So it says more kol mechitza sheishal shiv erev. In mechitza Here it's different because it's a caravan, so there you can make a less good wall, right? Because there are special rules. The Tani Kane, and we learned like this over here. Anything you can use to make a wall. I feel ukfin, even saddles. I feel eating, even buckets. I feel ugmali, even camels themselves. As long as you don't have between each saddle the length of a saddle, because then obviously it's too much open space. And between bucket and bucket, the size of a bucket. Between cat. Do you read that already?
And then body food for you.
Now this is something which I don't remember from the Bavli, even though he assures us that it is there.
Not double.
When you make this wall, you can't look like this.
He takes the fruit that they wouldn't eat, and he sells it.
Right?
It's not so that.
I don't know.
If he doesn't tell her,
Even if this is a majority, let's say the Oymed is a majority, it's no good, because Poritz is Kenega Poritz. Okay, and also too like this. The way you'd have to get around it is by doing something like that. So you don't have any actual direct, right? Because this ends over here, and that end, this ends over here, that ends, so on and so forth. Okay? Eloime Kenega Poritz, or Poritz Kenega Oymed. The name says so Oymed. Now you come to the conclusion, although the Gemara is skipping quite a bit of in between steps.
Why would there be
But there was just a robbing mission. Right, not here. Right. Yeah. By the Mechitza Grua. By the special Mechitza where it made a leniency for a caravan, you can't have Oyme Keneged Oyme Poritz Keneged Poritz. It's possible that there's in between or other walls you can. Right? Walls that's not a Rishus Harayim situation, nor a Mechitza Grua situation. The situation Mechitza Grua, then you can't have opposite. Okay? A kopa nim tzeis oimer, so you come out say, Lea kilaim, in terms of kilaim, kol pachas mishloish kisasu. All of a sudden we throw in kilaim, we're going to continue on with this trend. Remember, by kilaim you have to divide between field and field, right? Then you can plant hard up from one field, hard against another field when you have a divider between the two fields. So, you come out leaning kilaim. If you have slats every 3 tfachim, it's as if it's closed off. You can plant mamish right up to the slat on one side, wheat and the other up to the slats on the other side, grapes. Bishloshavat arba. If the gaps between the poles are between 3 and 4 tfachim, right? Between 3 and 4. More than 3 and less than 4, right? Imai made Rabba la Porutz Mutter. If you have more standing space and open area, it's permissible. You have Porutz Rabba la Imid, vice versa. If you have more open space and standing structure, it's forbidden. Now, the truth is that, as the Korbaneda points out, that's not specifically true. Because he passed an Oymed Kaporit is mutter. If it's exactly 50-50, it's good. But the means to have is if you have 51%, then that's no good. Okay, if you have 51% open space, that's no good. Okay? So, Imay Rabal Aparot mutter, the Aparot are Oymed Osir. What if the opening is between 4 tfachim and 10 amos? Okay? Same idea. If the oimid is rabal aports, if you have more open space structure than free space, permissible. Aports rabal oimid. If, however, there's more open space than standing structure,
it's usher, right? Now,
Their malacha is finished.
here's the catch. Why this keneged apart's usher?
Fell and they broke.
In this case, then keneged apart's is usher.
Right?
What do you mean keneged apart's is usher? So it's even though you have a true wall here. You have oimer merubah apart's. Let's say you have here, this is 8, and this is 8, and this is 5. So you can plant your grapes here and your wheat here, right?
That case.
But not opposite the open
What's
space.
the case?
Right.
Here you have to be marchik 8 amos, or 12 amos, whatever the case may be. Only plant mamish right up to it where there's actually structure. If this is less than 4 tefachim, this opening is less than 4 tefachim, they can even plant right up to the gap, because it's an opening. But if it's more than 4 tefachim, up to 10 amos, then you can't plant opposite the gap. It's prohibited. Okay? So, yes, miss.
This is even according to the logic that basically
He
says
cannot eat. Or
parking of client is really more like a hectare.
Yeah, even according to that. That's right. Now, yes, master. Sorry, in the 5th line by little Aleph. So we made it this far. Yes, master. If it's more than 10 amos, even though you have more standing space than free structure, keneged oimed mutter, keneged aparutz also. Then you still plant only opposite the oimed and not opposite the parts. Now the truth is that's exactly what we just said before, right? There's no difference. Before I shouldn't point that out. There's an optical illusion here. Seems like there's a difference between where this opening is more than 10, the opening is less than 10, but it's not true. As long as the opening is more than 4 tefachim, you can't plant opposite the opening. Okay? The difference will be in the next case. That's all by kilayim. And by kilayim, as you pointed out, has to do with appearances. But by Shabbos has to do with enclosures. And by Shabbos, therefore, there's a difference. Okay, in Shabbos, if there's opening of less than 3 tefachim, kasasum, it's if it's closed. If it's between 3 tefachim and 4 tefachim, or between 4 tefachim and 10 tefachim, if there's more standing structure than free space, but it's permissible. And it's permissible in that case, even opposite the parts. That's where the difference is. By kilayim, opposite the open space, if it's more than 4 tefachim, you may not plant. But by Shabbos, it's still considered being closed. Therefore, you can carry even opposite the open space. Okay, that's where the difference is. Parts mutter parts rabble oimid also. As long as you have oimid parts, as long as you have more standing space and free structure, you can carry even opposite the open space. However, yeser mieser, if the gap is more than 10 amos, then you're up the creek. Aval pisha oimid rabble parts also. And here it's different than kilayim. If this gap is more than 10 amos by kilayim, right? Say it's 11, right? You can still plant by the kilayim opposite these walls. But Shabbos, it's very bright. It's parts removal made. There's no enclosure, and therefore you can't carry it off, right? Yes, Mesa B'Shem Rabbi parts also. Rabbi Chin, Rabbi Yehuda ben Paz, B'Shem Yochanan said, "Leis kan mishlosha v'ad arba." There's no such thing as between 3 and 4. Now, he's talking about a case where you have, say, 2 tefachim and 2 tefachim, and then you have a space between the 2. This is not drawn to scale. You have a space between the 2 tefachim between 3 and 4. Now, the truth is, I should make this 2.5 and 2.5. Now, I have Omer Rubel in this case, right? Says it doesn't matter. Doesn't help. Why is that? Even though I have Omer Rubel, Leis Khan Mishleisha Vadarbo. Yesh Khan Pirtzo Shlosha, as long as this opening is more than 3, doesn't matter. Omer Rubel doesn't count. Ain't Khan Mokom Arba. Why? Because when do I say Omer Rubel parts works? Where I have a chashivas of 4 tefachim standing.
Because 4 tefachim is the minimum shear of a wall. So I could say, if this is 4, and this is 4, and this is 3 in the middle, that I could say. Right? Of course I could say it in that case. But if this is 2.5 and this is 2.5, the moment this is more than 3 and I can't say lavud, too bad. As long as it's more than 3, it's already a problem. Okay? Hey, so Rabban asks, how can you say this? It says you can make an enclosure with sticks, poles, around your enclosure. The Kohen Yesh Lo Mokom, and a Kohen is less than 4 tefachim. So how can you do that? Amar Leis, they said, "Lo tziv any pachos mishleisha." There, between each rod, I have less than 3 tefachim. That's why that's okay, because I maintain less than 3 tefachim between. So if there's lavud. When did I say that this 2.5 and 2.5 on either side of the opening doesn't work? Where there's more than 3 tefachim between the two structures, because then I can't say lavud. But if it's less than 3 tefachim, shekol pachos b'shleisha kesasam, it's as if it's closed. Rabbi Yerushalmi Eruvin said, "Mikol makom became trying merubah apart mutter." He argues. He says this the way I believe we paskin. He says as long as you have 2.5 over here and 2.5 over there, and makes merubah apart, it's good enough. You don't need a full 4 tefachim in order to start the meter of merubah apart speed ticking. Okay. Says the Mishnah further.
If it's still in the bore, there's no
It's obviously an operating principle here.
Did it actually use the word?
Yeah.
No, not that I recall. And the Mishnah next more will not use good asik too, even though it means to use it. You can put 3 ropes, one on top of each other, in order to create a wall of 10 tefachim. Zul ma'azu, zul ma'azu. As long as there's less than 3 tefachim between the ropes. Shir chavolim over yetzer yesel tefach. Of course, you still have, if you have 3 airspaces of slightly less than 9 total, you still need 1 tefach, slightly more than 1 tefach. So the ropes themselves have to have some thickness, so all the ropes together become 1 tefach. Shiakol less than tefach, they're all together should be 10 tefach. Rabbi Zirah said, "Lomran ela be'eser." Now, Lieberman says this whole sukkah is messed up. One simple principle you have to know, he says. It's about sukkah. And it's talking about whether you say good asik by sukkah. Now, good asik means, what does good asik mean, Mr. Sukkah? That if a wall is 10 tefachim high, it's as if it goes
Down to the bottom.
no, up.
Oh, coming up.
If it's 10, that's good aches. Good asik means if it's 10 tefachim high, it's if it goes all the way up. So he says, Lo amru el be'eser. When you say it's as if the wall goes up to the schach, if the wall is at least 10 tefachim. So it's as if it goes up to the schach. If the wall is less than 10 tefachim, we don't say good asik. Lo. The tiny cake, and we learned this. If you bring a board which is 7 tefachim, and you put it less than 3 tefachim to the. It's a question. I'm sorry. Now this Mandomer didn't understand. The Mandomer says Vitani Kane thought that we don't even say lavud. Kudasik we don't say by 10 tefachim. It's less than 10 tefachim, and you don't say lavud either. And that's why I asked the question. Vitani Kane. Didn't we learn heavy diamond show shivatoi board a beam which is a board which is 7 tefachim large? Put it within 3 tefachim in the ground. Mutter. So it's a valid wall. According to you, why it's a valid wall? You don't say good asik or lavud unless it's 10. So you say you didn't understand me. Anything which is within 3 tefachim on the ground is if it's closed off, because I said the principle of lavud. That I agree with. The Kart Amar, but if you want to get the walls to go up to the schach, is it shaykh lavud? No, the schach could be very high. The only way I get to the schach is by good asik. Good asik I always say if I have 10 tefachim, right? Because inat boy makshaya hachim makashi. If you wanted to ask me a question, now you should have asked me this question. The question you asked that was a lousy question. I'll give you a better question to ask. What's a better question? Heavy doifen. There's a Bryce that says if you brought a wall as a typo here, show arba tvachim, which is a boy which is 4 tvachim wide. The koshu, slightly more than 4 tvachim. The beam in orange shnei tvachim, chaser koshu, and you put it slightly less than 2 tvachim above the ground. So you have lovit. So what's the total shiur now? Slightly less than 2 plus slightly more than 4, approximately 6, right? Yeva, I should say by this, Kaida Ma Rabbi Yechanan, like Rabbi Yechanan said, that you should join together the 6 plus the 4 above it, because you have Oymen Merubah, right? And Oimen Rabel Chalal. And you should, as long as you have more standing space than free space. Yet I don't say that there. A sukkah which has a wall which is 6 tefachim high, and another 4 tefachim to the schach, I don't say it's kosher. It's possible. Why is that? Because in order to say gudasik, in order to overcome a deficit of 4, he's learning oymen merubah. A vertical oymen merubah is the same thing like a vertical gudasik, and therefore I might be able to say oymen merubah horizontally with less parameters. But in order to say oymen merubah vertically, which is tantamount gudasik, I have to have at least a structure of 10 tefachim. Because that's the halacha mechitza. That's the how I have a height of 10 tefachim. Okay? Rav Shimon ben Chanani said, classic tzuras HaPesach. Nots arba kanim ba'arba asaviyas hakerem. You stick 4 poles into 4 corners of a vineyard, the kosher gemi milamala, and you put a rope on top of it. 4 poles. And a rope on top. Classic tzuras HaPesach, right? Matzil mishum peah. It's considered to be a peah, meaning a wall. And therefore I can plant wheat and grapes right next to each other. What's separating between them? Tzuras HaPesach. Even for kilayim, that suffices. Takes away the marisite. Rabbi Yochanan bechitzas Shabbos, bechitzas kilayim. Shabbos works the same way. You have a tzuras HaPesach halacha by Shabbos, just like kilayim. Rabbi Yochanan said, "Ma'aser shalach Rabbi Shimon korchetz Rabbi Yochanan Minuri lenagnad." Whatever, nagnagid. Rabbi Shimon korchetz went to Rabbi Yochanan Minuri by nagnagid. And they showed him a certain field. Ubeis chaverto, and he goes, "It's called beis chaverto." And there were openings of more than 10 amas between the vineyard and the wheat, the grain field. For and he took pieces of wood with soisim to fill in the gaps, to cronin pegs with soisim fill in the gaps, until he made them less than 10 amos. And then he said, that's already good enough. Not like the previous Gemara, because he was planted even right up to the breach, and yet nonetheless he said it's good enough, as long as the breach is less than 10 amos. Right? Now like Gemara we had on Yudam base. Omar, and he said, Kazu kain mechitza Shabbos. The same principle applies to the walls of Shabbos as well. Okay? Again, by Shabbos, if you have a breach in less than 10, it's not considered to be a breach. Okay, we'll stop here for today. Another fascinating thing I saw on the trip was that we were in Sipori. Sipori actually was a city which made a deal with the Romans in the Great Revolt. Yeah, they were spared. Right next to them is a valley called Beis Rimon, where some of the greatest atrocities occurred. But Sipori was B'Sheketu V'Shalva, and that's where Rebbe wrote the Mishnayos about 100 years later in Sipori. And it's an amazing city because you go there and you see it's a Roman city. A Roman city with amphitheaters, a 5,000 seat amphitheater, and you have there also a 5,000 Roman baths and mosaics, ornate mosaics, which all depict Avodah Zarahs, of various different types. Yet this was the focal city of the Mishnaic period. So you see, they had this interesting relationship with the Romans at the time, and that's why they point out it's a lot of Masechta Avodah Zarah. You understand that way because they were living among them. At the same time, they had to maintain their separation, and therefore you have all the sugyas which reflect the tension of that type of arrangement. So we had, on the other hand, we were in Gamla, where the entire city was wiped out, 9,000 people by the Romans. So in Eretz Yisrael at the time, there's tremendous tension between those who were, completely dedicated to fighting, and those who completely, involved. So then they had